The Cuban Missile Crisis, known as the October Crisis in Cuba and the Caribbean Crisis in the former USSR, was a 13-day conversation between the Soviet Union and Cuba on one side and the United States on the other in October of 1962. It was one of the major confrontations of the Cold War and generally regarded as the moment in the Cold War came closest to turning into a nuclear conflict. It was also the first documented instance of a threat of mutual assured destruction being discussed as a determining factor in a major international arms agreement. After provocative political moves and failed U.S. attempt to overthrow the Cuban regime in the Bay of Pigs in May 1962, Khrushchev proposed an idea of placing Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba to deter any future invasion attempt. During a meeting between Khrushchev and Fidel Castro that July, a secret agreement was reached and a construction of several missile sites began late in the summer. Such moves would neutralize the U.S.'s advantage of having missiles in Turkey. These preparations were noticed on the 14th of October by a U.S. U-2 aircraft. And this is the meeting. Castro, come in.
Hey.
I hope the flight over here was delightful.
It was. I must say.
How are you enjoying Mother Russia?
It is very nice, very high quality.
Sit, let us talk.
Okay, is this about the Americans?
Yes, this is about the Americans. What shall we do about them?
Hold on. So, Castro, I know you have felt the Americans' presence, especially with the assassination attempts, the overthrow of your government, or they tried to, but they do not stop you. You are the man. But here's my problem. So we have been facing imminent American threats from Turkey, from the Cold War, and now we're almost all out of options. I think it's time, and you and I know it's time, to even the playing field and bring the U.S. to their knees. We will bury them with my plan.
So what is your proposition? Is this about the nuclear crisis that we have been having? You know the Americans have more missiles than us. It is just a simple fact.
Yes. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been boxed in by your enemies, not knowing when they're going to strike? The United States has bases and missiles in Turkey, a stone's throw from our mother Russia. Do you realize what that could do to my people? I'm not going to let that happen. And that's where you come in. So, what would be in it for you? You would have nuclear missiles on Cuba, as well as Russian support, weapons, soldiers, and supplies. That is all we can offer. No money, just power. Pure power against the Americans. Of course, these missiles, these men, these weapons would be under your control, but you are under mine. I know that is very hard to hear coming from a Russian to Fidel Castro, but it must be said. If you were to partake in this deal, I will be your boss. I will hold the power. You will simply wield my sword. Now, would you accept this offer?
Your offer is very tempting. But I do not know. The Americans may become hostile against me, simply a small Cuban country. What will I do?
You see, there is nothing you have to do. See, not only do I hold power in the UN, as well as many strong communist allies. Now, I not only have China at my side, but I also have infinite number of research we can do, as well as personal bodyguards for you, if that makes the deal more appetizing. So, the Americans will be powerless. We can counter their missiles that could attack you as well, but also the ones in Turkey, to even the playing field. I'm tired of Mother Russia always being under imminent threat by the Americans. We have to do this. Not only that, but it's time we bring in a new power It's time for the Cuban-Russian era. Would you accept this offer?
Yes.
We are sorry to interrupt your scheduled program for some breaking news on the Cuban Missile Crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, things have turned for the worst. These are two memos sent from the President to General Daniels of the USS Montgomery. The first one says, Mr. President, a Soviet ship has broken through the blockade and is planning to land in Cuba in 10 minutes, containing a nuclear warhead.
In reply, the president stated that do whatever it takes to stop this ship from landing. What will happen, America?
Ladies and gentlemen, nuclear war has started. Be ready. And then cut it out. Ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes and counting. This is an exclusive phone call that our government has revealed to us between Castro and Khrushchev. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen carefully.
We have spotted American troops and naval ships approaching my shores. It appears that they are retaliating from my ship that broke the blockade and arrived moments ago. I am in fear for my life and the lives of my citizens.
I see. What precautions should we take to ensure you and your country's safety?
I am requesting permission to launch the missiles that you have stationed here.
Do you believe this is the only course of action to take?
Yes, I fear that this is the only way to stop the American forces without the demise of my country and the loss of the nuclear security for the Soviet Union. I understand you have...
I understand. You have my permission.
I will have the order sent immediately.
Good. Bury them.
Gentlemen, we have just received word that the missiles have been launched. Take cover at all costs.
We also have word that the President Kennedy is calling an emergency press conference right now. Let's go check that out.
My fellow Americans, our biggest fear has become a reality. I have just received word of Soviet missiles being launched from Cuba, heading towards us. At this point, our future is unclear. However, the willpower and strength of the American people will always be clear. We must bond together in the time of hardship. Lives will be lost, but we will never give up. At this time, I advise all citizens to seek shelter, whether it is a fallout bunker or a basement. Any protection will increase our chances of survival. Keep your families close and remain hopeful. We will overcome this tragedy in time.
Mr. President, we must seek shelter.
It is over. The Americans are finished. The White House is crumbling down as we speak. The Russians and communism have won. There is no hope left.